Today we're looking at another rookie mock draft. This one's going to be Superflex tight end premium. And the picks here are going to be fun to look at. I was not involved. This one was sent to me like always, because if not, it'd be just rankings with me doing a mock draft, and I already do the rankings. So if you want what I think ranking wise on these players, go back to the ranking videos, and I'll have more here in the next few days anyways on the running backs and wide receivers. But today, we're looking at a Superflex rookie mock draft tight end premium. I do not know how premium at tight end. I'm guessing 1.5 to an extra point. That being said, we're going to see some interesting stuff here at the quarterback spot. We're going to see some interesting picks. Let me know what you think about this mock draft in the comments below. I want to hear about that. But we're going to go with our first pick off the board here today. There's no surprise here. There's no surprise with the first one. But we're going to take a look here. It's Ashton Jeanty. And default 101, all formats, and that's what I'm seeing. Every mock draft that comes my way, pretty much, 101. Everyone that I see on the internet, 101. Very few has one of the quarterbacks at the 101 spot. Market sentiment is that Dynasty gamers are not in love with this quarterback class. And these drafters here, not in love with the quarterback class, and that makes sense, and I'm seeing it all over the place, and that's reflecting with the 101. Ashton Jeanty not getting any competition for that spot. Right now, he's locked in for the 101. We all know about the production. We all know about Ashton Jeanty, a very good running back prospect who has a lot of different landing spots for the first round, so the odds of him falling out of the first round are not very good. 2,600 yards, 29 touchdowns. I think it's hard to argue against him not being the 101 or a top 3 pick at this point. So he's locked in there. So nothing crazy at this point in the draft. But we keep going. We're going to our second pick off the board. One of my favorite players are coming off the board in this year's draft. It's T-Mac. I like T-Mac a lot. I think when you stack him up against the wide receivers in this class, there's a big drop-off. And T-Mac's up there. Compare him to wide receivers in previous classes, he'd be up there when it comes to the rankings. And we will have rankings with these rookies mixed with last year's rookies and mixed with the rookies year prior, so you can get a better gauge of what you're looking at. But T-Mac, very productive, back-to-back, almost back-to-back 1,400-yard seasons. And then touchdowns were legit there, 18 touchdowns in the last 2 years. This is a guy that gets downfield and makes plays. Sticky hands, and he gets it downfield with that length. And he has a good ADOT all throughout his collegiate career. And ADOT averaged out over the 3 years at 14. Looking solid at that standpoint. Will be a first-round selection. Will be the first wide receiver off the board unless we catch some weird news. And T-Mac going at 102 here above quarterbacks. I don't hate it at all. I don't hate it at all. If you want to do that, go ahead and do that. I like T-Mac a lot here, but we're moving on to the third pick off the board. Third pick off the board. Might surprise some of you guys, but I get it. I get the theory behind it, and we're looking at it here. 103, Luther Burden. So when you really think about the wide receiver pool after T-Mac, it's going to drop off sharply. Luther Burden is up there in that discussion when it comes to the top wide receivers. Look at the separation metrics over at PFF, and you see a top wide receiver when it comes to creating separation. You'll see that on the highlights, the film. You look at the production there, they were trying to use him immensely. I say this every week. They were trying to use him hard as a freshman, and they were. They were trying to get the ball in his hands. They were trying to get him rushing attempts. And then sophomore season, we ball out. Counting stats dip a little bit here in 2024, but the talent's there. He's going to be a first-round pick. I can't see him falling out of the draft unless we catch some weird news. And if you're hurting at the wide receiver spot, you're not too keen at the running backs, or saying in the simulation the running backs don't really go to a lucrative spot in drafts, or they fall a little bit too far to your liking, and you like Luther Burden, it's all good here. It's all good here. So now we're going to our next pick off the board at the 104. Now is when the surprises are going to happen, and I think it's cool here. And at 104, one of my favorite running backs in this year's class, Quinshon Judkins. And the thing about Judkins is he's proven to be a workhorse. He's proven to be a guy that can transition from program to program to program and become a key staple to that offense quickly. He has proven to that, and he could prove to do that from the college level to the NFL level. He did it from the high school level to the SEC level, and he's proven to be a big part of the Buckeyes, who's now in the national championship game instantly as well. He was considered one of the top running backs in all college football not too long ago, year and a half ago. And if you were saying he was going to be the second best running back off the board in this year's class back then, you'd have been like, who's going to be ahead of him anyways? Because a lot of people would say, probably locking him in, RB1. 104, a good guy that can grind it between the tackles. He was proven to be a workhorse, proven to get it done. We're going to Ohio State. We're going there to get that natty. We're going there to get that natty. We're going there to get that money before we head out to the NFL. And now it's time for us to complete the journey by going to the NFL. 104 pick here, Quinshon Judkins. And now we're moving on to our next player off the board. Next player off the board in this draft here, 105, Emeka Egbuka. Emeka Egbuka. So if you're grading wide receivers, you're looking at the pool, it drops sharply. And you're looking at T-Mac, Luther Burden. There's a big drop from there. But after that, things start to unravel a bit. Emeka Egbuka more than likely is going to be a first-round pick. So you're looking at a first-round wide receiver who's very nuanced, who was a 5-star prospect, who's endured injuries throughout his career, who's played on a Ohio State team with different quarterbacks that were very off and on throughout his career, stayed there, stayed with Ohio State. We're trying to get the natty here at Ohio State. That is the thing. A lot of these prospects came back for that final year to get that natty, and Emeka Egbuka is going to be a first-round pick in the back end of the draft that could land into a sweet situation, and he's just a smart player. Might be a wide receiver 2 on his team, may not be the wide receiver 1, but you're looking at a first-round prospect that's very smooth. The question with him is him versus the running backs. So honestly, in real life, we do not know where these running backs go. Him versus Omarion Hampton, him versus Kaleb Johnson, him versus the other running backs on the board that's not yet drafted. That is the question here, and a lot of you guys are asking that right now. That being said, still a good prospect, still going to get some good draft capital in Dynasty rookie drafts. We're going to move on. We're going to move forward to the 106 pick. Remember, it's tight end premium. Tight end premium. So tight ends are going to be funneled up the board. I do not know if it's 1.5 or 2 or whatever. Premium could be different from league to league. Sometimes you get points per carry. Sometimes the rules are a little bit different. You get points for first downs and stuff like that. That's what you like about Dynasty football, that you can get very creative with this game. But next player off the board, Colston Loveland. And this is a high-end tight end prospect that has very, very, very good odds of getting drafted in the first round. Has very good odds of landing in a good spot, especially in the first round. If Tyler Warren goes earlier in the draft, he's jumping the rankings of a lot of sites. PFF just jumped him to 12 overall in their rankings. So if that happens, he might be in the back end of the draft and might land into a sexy spot. When you're looking at the back end of this year's draft, you're looking at defense, you're looking at offensive tackle, you're looking at those players and position pools. Those are drying up quicker than usual. And a guy like Colston Loveland could land in a sexy spot where it's not a position of need, but he could develop there behind a good starter even. But it's the sexy spot that once he's developed and good to go for that team, might make him a lucrative prospect for Dynasty. On top of that, a good prospect, a guy getting a good ADOT, 7.1, 10.3, 9.6 over the course of his career. He can get downfield, make plays happen. He can take over games, 112 yards against Oregon. This is a very good prospect. I like to see where he lands because we got some weird position pools this year that could make things a little bit different in this year's draft, which is going to make things very intriguing, which could be a very creative NFL draft, maybe a lot of trading this year. We're moving on to our next pick. I'm looking at this player right now, and I like this wide receiver. I like him a lot. I don't fault this pick. I don't fault this pick at all. I like this player a lot. When I was ranking wide receivers earlier this week, and I was saying there's guys on the board that I like, but I was following and tearing off somebody else's ranks, PFFs, so I can stretch myself out and look at other players. This is one of the guys I was looking at that I wished was on there so I could talk about. and it's Trey Harris. I like Trey Harris a lot. I like the production. I don't like that he was in college football for half a decade, but still, 1,000 yards, back-to-back 900-yard seasons prior to that. We were productive. We were productive with 2 different collegiate programs. We transitioned well from Louisiana Tech to Ole Miss. We were productive instantly there. And that being said, you got yourself a good wide receiver with good size, that's good at breaking off routes, that's very sticky, after a big tier break at wide receiver that could do something for you. The ADOT's good at the college level, especially at Ole Miss, 13 and 12, those 2 years. Then after that, a good ADOT above 10 at Louisiana Tech. So we're getting stretched downfield, we're getting the appropriate targets, we are productive, 6'3", 210. And the one thing you're going to say here is Omarion Hampton, Kaleb Johnson, the running backs, and that's the big pushback, and I understand that. I'd make that pushback as well. But when you really think of things, you want to look at mock drafts that are different. You want to look at different markets. This is a channel that looks at markets. I don't think you realize that, but when we look at all these mock drafts, we look at the PFF mocks, we even do player analysis, buy, sell, hold trades. We're looking at the market mostly, and then we're trying to predict the market and timing the buys and sells of what you want to do, honestly. So when we're looking at these mock drafts and they're a little different, I like looking at the different ones because that gives me a range, and that also gives me thought processes of other people for me to look into. I like Trey Harris a lot, and I've had people in the comments section like Trey Harris a lot, and I think he's going to be a riser among the masses. When I say the masses, the people aren't really in the thick of it right now in early January. But we're going to move on. We're going to move on to our next pick at the 108 spot. Guess who it is? Guess who it is? But we got another Buckeye. TreVeyon Henderson coming off the board. The thing about him, he's very electric. He's good in the passing game. He's very smooth. That great freshman season, catching the ball out of the backfield. We're probably going to see more in the national title game. His stock is rising. His stock is increasing. And I could definitely make a case that he could be a fantasy contributor on all 32 NFL teams. And I believe he's one of very few running backs in the league, in college football, or in general, that could make that case. So at the 108 spot, with how explosive he is, you're getting a good running back prospect here with a lot of upside. You still got Omarion Hampton, you got Kaleb Johnson on the board. The drafters are letting him slip. That's cool. That's cool. You got to draft your flavor. You got to draft who you like. But we're looking at a tremendous prospect here. We're looking at a guy that's very explosive. We're looking at a guy, we're talking fantasy football. We're not talking just prospecting for running backs. We're talking fantasy football. So we're getting the ball a lot in the flat. We're getting the opportunity of being explosive. And this is one of the few running backs in this draft that only needs 10 to 12 touches to be fantasy relevant. If you knock some of these backs down to 10 to 12 touches or opportunities, they may not be as fantasy relevant as due to TreVeyon Henderson being explosive in spaces in the open field. That gives him a little bit of bend when it comes to his prospect analysis because we're playing fantasy, not just prospecting out here. So that's something to look at here for TreVeyon Henderson, something to think about, something to chew on as we work down to the 109. The 109 player coming off the board, I think spot-wise for the draft ain't bad. It ain't bad. I look at the running backs left, I like them better. Travis Hunter coming down. Travis Hunter, very explosive playmaker, very explosive wide receiver, will definitely get good draft capital. He is not sliding down the board. Whoever drafts him will at least think hard about using him at wide receiver. We get a lot of work at corner. But ADOTs are looking good throughout his career. Production was good at wide receiver, 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns. He's electric. He can break off routes. He wants to play both ways. He's proven he can do that. And we might get more players like this coming through the pipeline. This might be a start of something new. It could be. I could be totally wrong. But this could be the start of something new. When you got a player that's so dominant, you just use them in different ways. Travis Hunter at the 109 spot. Very conservative spot because if he's listed as just a wide receiver, he's getting bumped up a bit with that draft capital. 109 spot, you don't know what's going on. Again, like you're all thinking, him versus those running backs who are still on the board. And the quarterbacks, It's super flex. Where are they? Where are they? Are they going to come on down now? Are they going to come on down now? No. Tyler Warren coming off the board. First round tight end prospects. 104 catches, 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns. No wide receivers really to compete against at Penn State. A lot of them transferred out. Tyler Warren, though, a damn good tight end prospect. A tight end prospect that you can use downfield. A tight end prospect that can create separation. That is very safe. And you're looking at the ranges of where you can go in the draft. What if he gets drafted by the Colts? Are you drafting him in the first round? Because there's competition there. The passing attempts aren't vast. Is he a first-round pick in Dynasty for you if that happens? When you look at pure talent, yeah. I mean, he's climbing the ranks on everybody. And this is another tight end prospect. Me with tight ends is I usually fade them. Unless it's Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers, that's a prospect you don't fade. But I usually fade them and wait to buy them the next year. And the reason why is they usually take a year or so to develop. And you can't say that about like Sam Laporta because he wasn't going in the first round. He was going at a good values in the middle-ish, up and down the second round. But you're looking at a guy here like Tyler Warren. You got running backs on the board. So that's another thing you want to do. But it's tight end premium. Tight end premium means that you're getting extra points for his catches. Maybe even more depending on how premium you are. And Dynasty Leagues are different and they're vast. That being said, 104 catches, 1,200 yards, first-round draft capital, first tight end off the board more than likely. That is something to look at. That's something to chew on as we move on to the 11th pick. And coming off the board on the 11th pick. And is it going to be one of the running backs? It's Cam Ward. Cam Ward, super flex. They stated they're not in on the quarterback position this year. They don't have first-round grades. Nobody likes them. That makes sense. That makes sense. We're getting a lot of drafts. We're hearing a lot of people talk they don't like the quarterback position this year. They don't like the landing spots at the top. They're not into it. They're not feeling it. They're fading it. First-round quarterbacks that are drafted top 5, you really can't ignore no matter how much you hate them because at least they're going to hold value for at least 12 months or so. Hold some sort of value to where you can play off that. And you can't push them out of the first round. Cam Ward does have to get drafted somewhere around there. He's going to be, or more than likely going to be, the first quarterback off the board. So going at 111 is good for the process, considering you're thinking you don't like these quarterbacks. He's got to go somewhere in the first round. You can't just completely ignore it. He might be bumped up a few spots for most negative quarterback leagues in Superflex. Ones that don't feel good about the quarterback spot. I think in Superflex, though, most of the time he's going a little bit higher. But looking at a new look here, if the quarterback's falling, that's something to think about going forward. Going to our final pick. Going to our final pick off the board. And we're looking at Shedeur Sanders. Earlier today, I did a mock draft on the PFF mock draft simulator. And I was on the clock. He fell past the Browns. I let the computer do the AFC. I did the NFC. And I was on the board with the Giants. And I let him slip just to see how far he would slip. He slipped all the way to 21 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So there is a chance he could slip in this draft. That's not saying he will because that's just like computer games. We're playing war games over here with the PFF mock draft simulator. It's not real. But Shedeur Sanders is a prospect a lot of people aren't too keen on. I could definitely see him fall some spots in a lot of drafts. I can definitely see some mock drafts in Dynasty where he falls. This does not surprise me at all. I also see a lot of people pulling up on him. I see a lot of people like him. A lot of people that don't like the landing spots. I can definitely see some weird trades going on with the NFL draft when it comes to the top. Still being very fluid. At the quarterback position, I go back to thinking about Bo Nix. And if that discount's there, if you're in a tier where you just don't like where you're at when it comes to running back and wide receiver, and a guy like Shedeur's there, and you didn't like him in general, just pull on the position in Superflex. See what happens, because we could develop faster than anticipated. We could have a good rookie season still. We could be better than anticipated, because I don't trust quarterback scouting, especially a lot of people on the internet. I just don't trust it. I look at quarterbacks all the time, and I think my evaluation on quarterbacks ain't horrible. I don't think it's horrible, but I still don't even trust myself. I just look at the values and I play off that. It's Dynasty, it's fantasy football, so I play the game like it's fantasy football. I don't play the game like an NFL scout. The one thing about this draft, and it's been mentioned in the comments, is the running backs. Where would you plug in the running backs if you were drafting in this draft? Where would you take Omarion Hampton? Where would you take Kaleb Johnson? Both those guys are my guys. That's why I look at mock draft, because if I was making up mock drafts every day, like I used to like 3 years ago, they'd all look the same. And then I'd have to galaxy brain it. And then when that was happening, people started sending me mock drafts. That's how this came about. People see that I'm taking mock drafts. People start doing mock drafts. Their buddies get together. And I got a bunch of crews that are doing mock drafts. And then they'll send me some. And that's how I'm able to get these mock drafts in. I used to make them up a few years ago. I used to have to like make picks that I wouldn't make, but try to say, hey, if this happened and this happened, maybe this would happen in our Dynasty rookie mocks. And now we have to adjust here. That's how I would do it. So that's why I like looking at these different mock drafts. I like looking at different perspectives. I like seeing what the board could look like. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. I want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.